So hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, UnPAC'd, Navigating Government Affairs Without or with a Small PAC. I'm David Lusk. I'm the founder of Key Advocacy, and I'll be moderating this virtual session featuring three exceptional authorities on our topic today. As I noted, I'm the chair of ASAE's Government Relations and Advocacy Professionals Advisory Council, or GRAPAC, which is pleased to be hosting today's event. For those of you joining a GRAPAC session for the first time, we are the volunteer leadership group for ASAE's community of more than 2,000 association advocacy professionals nationwide. The Advocacy Council has focused on providing strategic direction and content development related to government relations, advocacy, and education for the association community, focused on improving the effectiveness of association efforts in government affairs and advocacy. So I note it has, because we are not just entering the final weeks of my term as chair, but also of GRAPAC's existence. For ASAE's next volunteer term, which begins in September, this advisory council will be merged with ASAE's Public Policy Committee to form the new ASAE Advocacy Council. This new volunteer body will be charged with the responsibilities already noted, as well as oversight and guidance of ASAE's own government relations. Leading the Advocacy Council during this initial transition year will be co-chairs Margarita Valdez-Martinez, Director of Policy and Advocacy for the American Society of Gene and Cell Therapy, and Mark Ames, Director of Government Relations for the American Industrial Hygiene Association. So please be on the lookout for similar content and programming in the future from Margarita and Mark's ASAE Advocacy Council. Those of you joining us for the live version of this webinar are eligible to receive 1 CAE credit for attending. Also, this session will be captioned to aid those in attendance. Please submit any questions that you have for today's speakers in the chat box, and we will address as many of those as time allows. So now on to today's topic and distinguished experts who will discuss leveraging government affairs activities without a PAC or stretching the reach of a small PAC. So joining me today first is GRAPAC member Michelle Lee, Director of Advocacy at NTCA, and she'll be accompanied by Jim Kahl, fellow GRAPAC member and partner at Whiteford Law, and also John Boling, Director of Government Relations for the International Institute of Building Enclosure Consultants and longtime ASAE volunteer and friend of the GRAPAC. So we'll begin by having each of our speakers tell us a little bit about themselves and their organizations to set the stage for our discussion. Michelle, why don't you lead us off?
All right, thank you. Great to see everyone. So as Dave mentioned, my name is Michelle Lee, and I'm the Director of Advocacy at NTCA-The World Broadband Association. So I originally came to DC to work for Senator Orrin Hatch from Utah, and I've been with NTCA for 15 years now. So our association has over 800 member companies from across the US, and they began as the local phone companies in their rural communities, and they're now the high-speed broadband providers. When I began at NTCA, our PAC was raising just under $150,000 annually. And over my tenure, I've grown it to over $300,000 annually. So raising more than when I began and having a few more resources, but still may be considered small compared to some of the other large PACs in the DC area.
Why don't we hand things over perhaps to Jim? Do you want to go next?
Sure, and thank you, David, and it's a pleasure to be here with everybody this afternoon. I'm Jim Kahl. I'm a partner in the Washington office of Whiteford, Taylor, and Preston. I'm also the co-chair of the firm's associations, nonprofits, and political organizations practice. We have a number of lawyers here in the firm, and we serve the needs of associations and other nonprofits in all that they do. In a prior life, I was the Deputy General Counsel at the Federal Election Commission and dealt with the commission and all the things that it does through regulations and enforcement and rulemaking. I've been with ASAE, a member for, I think, over 20 years now, and served on a number of councils. It's been a pleasure. I've been an attorney in DC for more decades than I care to admit to. Most of my practice, almost entirely, is focused on assisting our clients who work with government and government agencies and in the political law space, helping them use the rules to advance their public policy goals.
And why don't we send things over to Mr. Boling, who needs to unmute first. So
One of those things. I had really something great to say there. Good afternoon, everyone. I am John Boling. I'm the Director of Government Relations for the International Institute of Building Enclosure Consultants. In this role, I am responsible for advocating on behalf of our members at the provincial, state, federal, and local levels in the US and Canada. We're also responsible for building codes and standards, and really to introduce ourselves, since we're a younger association, only 40 years old, introduce ourselves to the other business building associations out there. You might think, what is a building enclosure consultant? And I would respond, we keep the weather outside and you warm and comfortable inside in your commercial building or your multifamily housing. So think of the skin of the building. We take care of that, keep the water from coming up underneath. So just so you know, during my career, I have worked for a US presidential commission. I've worked for 3 members of Congress, 5 if you count internships. I've worked for 4 trade associations in similar roles over the last 30 years this year. Makes me feel old. And I've been a volunteer with ASAE now for just about 10 years. And currently I serve on the board of NILE as well. That's the National Institute for Lobbying and Ethics, which I encourage you to join as well as ASAE. To sum it up, I've seen a thing or two. David?
it's quite a bit that you've done, and I think you just turned 40 last month or something like John's. So that's a lot you've accomplished in just a little bit of time. Why don't we actually stay with you and kick things off with a question. So what overarching strategies have you found helpful when doing your advocacy work without a PAC?
Thank you, David. Really, I think the overarching goal, and I'm stealing this from a friend, I just saw it the other day, and I'm like, wow, that really sums up what we do well. My overarching goal as an advocacy professional is to build meaningful relationships and move legislators and their staff from unknown to known to trusted. And how do we do that? Sometimes you have a PAC, sometimes you don't, but here are 6 strategies that I've used in the past without it, that don't need a PAC. So number 1, show up in person. The Capitol campus is open. We fought hard to get it open. Finally, it is. Get out of your office and get up to Capitol Hill. After all, that's where the action is. Many lobbyists and associations go up the hill at the beginning of the year. They get in there right away. Sometimes it's too soon before they're even really staffed up. But that doesn't mean you can't go back. You can't wait, but you can wait a little bit, and you can go back and fill them in with the new stuff. So you can do this any time of the session. It doesn't require it to be at the very beginning. One of the things I've done this many times, and one of the things staff will do is say, oh, I don't know anything about that. Just I don't have an opinion, whatever it may be. Anyone who's been as a legislative advisor for over 2 years has an opinion. They know what's going on. Don't let them off the hook. Pigeonhole or pigeonhole them. Pester them with questions. Be like, okay, well, what's the chairman say? What's the ranking member say? What's the scuttlebutt? Get up there and start having those conversations. They'll respect the questions. So go ahead and ask. Another part about being in person is committee hearings. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a committee hearing and there's 5, maybe 10 people in the audience. Unless it's a big markup, there's nobody in the audience. We're all looking at the people who are testifying and at the dais. Where do you think the members of Congress are? They're looking at the testifiers, and they're not going to stare at them. They're going to look around the room and they're going to say, oh, there's John. I remember him. They'll look at you in the audience. Number 2, where do you think staff's looking? Staff's looking all over the place as well. So if you're there, you're seen, and they'll remember you if you do it regularly. If you show up, there's that. Plus, on the great side is I've grabbed staff, members of Congress as well in the hallway outside. I said, hey, following up on something that happened in the hearing. Well, I like your questions. What do you think about this? By doing that, or you can circle back with their office the next day later on, it legitimizes your contact and helps you establish or maintain that relationship that you have with them. So showing up really does work. The other thing is committee staff if you ask them, they put in a hell of a lot of work putting together a committee hearing, making sure everything's, working on time, everyone's got testimony in, all the testimony is good, the press is done. And if nobody's there, they feel bad. It's like, it was a dud hearing. They can't see you through the computer, just like I can't see you now. But if you're there, they will respect that. That you showed up to their hearing, it makes them feel like they did something worthwhile. So thank them afterwards. They will appreciate it. So that's one of them. Here's a bonus one. You're all smart people. If you know staffers, send them a question to ask. It might not be asked, but if you follow up with them afterwards, no matter what, just say, how'd it go? Did the boss ask? Why not? Whatever it may be. I'd be in the hearings and I didn't hear my question. So I'd follow up and say, hey, what's happened? What happened? Why didn't the boss show or whatever? It gives you that chance to connect with them again. Not that you're mad at them, but it's just a question. So do that as well. So on this front, showing up actually the second strategy, let me pivot, is camp out in the cafeterias, the Capitol Hill Club, National Democratic Club, or wherever you can camp out. The campus is open. I can't tell you how much business I've done standing in front of the Capitol Hill Club. I've met incredible people. I've met some good friends. I've reestablished relationships with people that I know. And mind you, I'm not a member of either club. So I've saved all that money. Just standing out front, it's amazing who you run into. Everybody goes in there. Here's another thing. Years ago, when I was in the transportation, really focused on that, I'd gather 3 or 4 of my lobbyist friends, transportation lobbyist friends, and we'd go, we'd have lunch or we'd have breakfast, actually breakfast coffee, 8 o'clock, 8 to 9, something like that, in the Rayburn or Longworth cafeteria, and we call the staff or we text them, email them, and say, hey, we're down here talking transportation. You want to come down? It's a very friendly invitation. It's easy. They like to get out of the office. This was pre-COVID. Now it's kind of weird, but still, there's an opportunity for you to gather on Capitol Hill. And if you're sending them that communication, hey, just come have coffee, they'll appreciate it because they want to get out of the office too. Here's the thing. I also remember folks trying to do this downtown, and staff were like, I'm not going downtown. I got to pay for a cab. I got to pay for my lunch. It's a $20, $30 investor by them. They're not paid that well. So they ain't coming downtown. Go to them. Make it easy for them. So my third strategy for you is events with members of Congress. Staff will be there too. I used to call the congressional baseball game the cheapest lobbying date ever because it was like, what, $8, $9? It was a great time. So you've got baseball, basketball, softball, football. I think there's a pickleball one coming up. You can sponsor the events rather cheap. The congressional baseball game is a little different, but the other ones, $200, $500, really, it goes a long way. You can get a stadium suite at Nat Stadium. That's pretty awesome. And I've seen some people do some great stuff with that. Or simply walk around, see and be seen. It's a lot of fun to feel the energy, especially with all the non-aligned kids there in the middle. News and interest group events as well. Politico just had one last week or 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, FAA and Union Station. I saw a couple of friends that I haven't seen in a while. So that was great. See and be seen, pick up some information about what's going on in the industry. Here's one that I did go to that I really enjoyed. Rock Strategies had a free event, and it was about congressional women leaders. I don't remember the exact title, but it was 2 members of Congress talking about leadership and how they got to where they were. And I was considering approaching one, and I'll talk about that later on. Maybe I will. Maybe I skipped that part. Anyway, I'm considering approaching one to be a champion on one of our issues, or at least an ally on one of our issues. And she was there, and she was awesome. And I was like, wow, this was a side of her I wouldn't see in the committee hearing. I wouldn't be able to see that at all. So it was really good to see that. But number 2, I was able to talk to her chief of staff and her communications director. So I got to chat with both of them and just introduce myself. And I just lay that groundwork. I may follow up with her because we have an issue in one of her committees. So there's reasons to go to those things as well. Fourth strategy, I have 6, so I've only got a couple left here. Congressional caucuses. Google this: congressional member and staff organizations. All congressional member and staff organizations. There are big caucuses that you know, and there are small caucuses. I used to run one when I was a legislative staffer. And the older ones, like the one that I ran, we lost our mojo. We didn't really have a reason for existing other than kind of having it be on our letterhead that we were the vice chair or the co-chair of a caucus. That list that you'll find of the members' caucuses is 79 pages long. There's hundreds of caucuses. Find one that you could work with. And there's the ledge staffers, but usually they're bipartisan, Republican and Democrat, call them up and say, how are you doing? What are you doing this year? Can I help in any way? So there's it's really up to you. What can you do for them? You can draft letters on issues that the caucus can send to the rest of Congress or to a committee. Offer to bring in issue experts to discuss your issues. Get creative. The fact is, there's no guidelines for working with caucuses. You can do anything. Now, there's ethical guidelines and the House ethics rules and stuff like that. You can't bend them, but there's nothing that you can't do to help these groups out. So get creative with it. The 5th one, I'm trying to keep it short here. Coalitions, issue, industry, whatever. When there are 3 of you from different associations or different lobbying groups that want to go in and brief staff on an issue or something, that's a coalition. It's a legitimate ask to go in and be able to do that. When I was in the ag sector, I created my own coalition during the Farm Bill year, and I was able to pull together a bunch of folks. We could all talk about our corner of the ag bill. And we went in and we talked to everybody. We doled out assignments to get meetings and all that fun stuff. And we went in and we introduced ourselves. There was no money involved. It was all just shoe leather work, showing up, getting out there. And that was actually really fun and effective because there was a couple of days where we had 2 or 3 meetings in the morning, and then we go out for lunch. Another time I organized an event for staff using this coalition that I had kind of built up, thanking ag staffers, and I called it Agtoberfest. Put my thinking cap on for that one. Anyway, and I did everything according to the House rules to make it legit. It was a success, and since I organized it, I kept my cost to zero. Now, I did all the legwork, so I did a lot of work for it, but I'd had all the sponsors pay for the beer and everything else that we had that night, and everybody who showed up was happy. It was the first one, so it wasn't like 3,000 people, but everybody was happy. So you can do that. It cost me nothing this time. Another thing you can do with the coalition is draft a coalition letter on an issue. Go around and think of somebody on the committee who might be friendly to your issue. With that, you can go to them and say, would you submit this during the upcoming hearing? This is our coalition letter. We're concerned about this. It's not that hard. So that's that. I will move on to the media now. One of the things when I was with the National Stone, Sand, and Gravel Association, we had a magazine, and I would go to members of Congress and say, would you write an article for us? You can do that too if you have a magazine or a website. Everybody's got a website. You might have a digital magazine, you might have a hard copy one. You can do it too. Talk to the communications director. They're gonna write the article, so give them the points you would like the boss to hit, and get a nice picture of the boss and put it in there. Put it in your magazine. It only has to be 500 to 1,000 words or less for a page or page and a half. It's really not hard. And then here's the important part is I would take that magazine, I would put a thank you note in it, and I'd bring it back up to give it to the congressman or the congresswoman in some cases. They love to see their picture. They're human, just like us. You love to see your picture. They like to see that. And there was a thank you note from me in it, which was what? It was helping move that member of Congress unknown to known to trust. So,
And it gives you a reason to come visit the office without having an ask. It's actually a positive. So, and looking at where we are on time here, so I want to see if Jim or Michelle have anything that they'd like to chime in on. before we move on to our next topic.
I think I'm going to be commenting on some of the things we just heard. So in the interest of time, if I can cover that as I get into my session.
Okay, let's go ahead and move into the portion that you're going to do then, Jim.
So I'll ask myself the question then. I think I'm basically, what I've been asked to cover is, what kind of questions I get from clients, and what tactics they've used and found to be most effective. And as you might imagine, I get lots of different kinds of questions from our clients. And what I've tried to do here is to distill those questions into sort of an option list for organizations that may have a small PAC, or organizations that may have no PAC at all, or organizations that have a PAC, but they don't want to spend their PAC dollars on things. They want to keep those precious PAC dollars. So what can we do? And let me start off with clients that may have a small PAC. And the kind of questions we'll tend to focus on, we've got limited funds. How do we leverage the limited funds that we have? And of course, there are a couple of very simple things to do in terms of preservation of funds. Number one, don't use the PAC funds for activities that you don't need them for. So don't use your PAC funds for the cost of administration and fundraising for the PAC. You can use your association dollars for all those things. Use your PAC funds for contributing to clients. And similarly, if you're raising funds for your PAC, remember that the association's not alone. You can ask your corporate members for additional funds for administration and fundraising costs. A good example is if you're having a PAC raffle, and there are a lot of rules that go with that, but put that aside. If you're having a PAC raffle, your corporate members can donate the raffle items. The association is not going to have to use its funds for that. So going beyond that, another question we commonly get is, you may have limited funds for the PAC, and you can't afford to max out to all the candidates who want you to max out 5,000 to the primary and 5,000 to the general. And sort of jumping off what John was saying, here's where you can join together with others in the community. You can sponsor, your PAC can sponsor a fundraiser for a member joining with others, and you can do that for far less than $10,000. There's maybe a cost for you to be a sponsor. Maybe some extra money needs to be spent for food and beverages. But at the end of the day, there may be even more bang for the buck there, because you're helping raise a lot of money from a lot of people, and the fact that you haven't maxed out at 10,000 isn't going to be that significant. In fact, at the end of the day, as I said, it may be more beneficial to your organization. And of course, if you're with an association that may have a smaller profile, when your PAC is a sponsor of an event, you can co-sponsor with organizations that may have higher profile, or with individuals with higher profile, and you're thereby get the benefit of associating with them and the people who will be attracted to those events. So working with others is a really great strategy. Another question I get is for small organizations, like, okay, we want to raise more funds for our small PAC, but we simply do not have the time and effort. We have limited staff. Putting together events is costly and time consuming. What can we do? And this is an area where you just don't want to overlook the fact that you probably have 1 or 2 or 3 events a year, whether it's your annual meeting or convention or whatever it is, where you've got a built-in audience of solicitable folks for your PAC. They're there, and many of them are there, and it's a good opportunity to reach out to them about the PAC. Now, care is warranted here because it's a large group, and I think probably most of you cannot solicit outside your restricted class. Well, fortunately, the FEC has some very simple safe harbor rules that can be followed to structure that fundraising in a convention or annual meeting setting. If you follow those, you won't be caught up in an improper solicitation. Don't have the time to go into the details of it, but it's there. It's a very useful tool for convention fundraising. So moving on, for if you don't have a PAC, or you just don't want to use PAC funds, again, there are a number of strategies and things you can do. Again, some simple things that can be done. Remember always that the association can communicate with its restricted class members, people who can contribute to the PAC, on any topic. Even if you don't have a PAC, you still have a restricted class. It's a group of people in your organizations and your corporate members who are in that restricted class. And you can talk to those people about anything. You can say that the association supports a particular candidate. You think members should support it. All permissible, because you're talking to in the restricted class. And if you wanted to, the association could also endorse candidates. You can't coordinate with candidates doing that, but an endorsement is perfectly permissible and it really doesn't cost you anything. Another important thing to keep in mind, even if you don't have a fundraiser, the PAC, the association can support a fundraising event for a candidate where the candidate can come in, talk to people who are in your restricted class. You can encourage attendees to give funds to the candidate, and all that is permissible even without PAC funds. You can even pay for food and beverages that are there. One caution here, this is a smaller group of restricted class individuals than you could reach out to for donating to PAC. It's really the employees of your corporate members who you deal with on a regular basis, who can be in that restricted class. But a great way to help hold a fundraiser, even though you don't have a PAC. So it's very effective. Never lose sight of the fact that individuals, whether it's executives and your corporate members, your board members, they can make contributions of their own with their own dollars, and perfectly permissible. Note of caution here, you can't have an orchestrated fundraising event, but simply telling people that they can give a contribution to a candidate is absolutely permissible. Another thing you can consider with association dollars, probably a little bit more complexity to it. Since Citizens United, associations can give to super PACs and can sponsor independent advocacy communications on their own if they wish. Of course, there are significant disclosure rules and filings at the FEC that might be required if you go down that route. But again, no PAC is needed to do that. Leaving aside electoral kinds of activities, there are non-electoral options for supporting candidates, for getting into that space. One option is issue advocacy. So your association can engage in, well, if you're C6, you can engage in unlimited issue advocacy on legislation, for example, and C3s can do it to a limited extent. And you can reach out through print or social media or flyers or radio or TV ads, whatever, on issues that are aligned with a candidate. And your tagline to, can be to call Senator Jones and ask him to support HR 10 or thank him for supporting HR 10. It's not electoral, but it's appreciated. There are a number of different kinds of events that are permissible not only under campaign finance laws, but importantly under congressional ethics rules that you should keep in mind. Really good options, and John touched on some of these, like the issue events we were talking about. But invitations for candidates to speak to your organization about issues. John mentioned one. What was it? The Women's Leaders Forum. Well, there's an organization that had members come talk about important issues, and you can open that up to a wide range of individuals. You can. Another similar strategy is that in working with your corporate members, they may be having plant openings, or they may be having site inspections. And all those are kinds of events that members want to get back to their district. See that. It's a good opportunity for the association representatives to be there as well. And in the context of that, not only can the member come and have a meal with everybody who's there on site, normally at a cafeteria, but there might be an opportunity to present an award or something commemorative of the occasion. Great times for interaction. And then, of course, there are the staples of what we have in Washington, the widely attended industry gatherings, and oftentimes members are asked to speak there. You can give them a nice meal while they're there. And then all receptions that are the staple, well, at least to be the staple of Washington anyway, when we were all together and present, but with a resurgence now. The stand-up events where members and staffers can come, you can interact, and you can be having drinks and food on a stick. So there are a lot of opportunities for this kind of engagement. And the watchword I always give on this is to do advanced planning. There are many options, particularly when you deal with the gift rules. There are a lot of picky rules that go along with it. But if you follow them, there are a lot of opportunities for that engagement with or without a PAC. And so I think I need to pass this over to Michelle now. And with the question being that after employing all these strategies and tactics, an organization may reach the point where they're ready to start a PAC. So could you share what some of the considerations might be in starting a PAC, Michelle?
Sure. Thank you, John and Jim, for really getting us going. So, there are many things you can do without a PAC, but, there are fundraisers that you may be ready to be in that room at those fundraisers. There's weekend trips that are hosted by campaigns for their leadership PAC. So you may be ready to be at those events. And so if you don't have a PAC and you are considering starting one, wanted to share a few considerations. First of all, you want to be sure that you have leadership support. You're not going to really get support for your PAC unless you have leadership that is willing to take the lead and really set the tone for your association and for your association members. So, once you have buy-in from the top, then it's time to get organized. And running a PAC is a commitment. It's not something that you just start and stop. It's not like an event that you do it and then it's done. You are establishing an entity that you're going to have to follow compliance for, that you're going to have to take care of banking and do bank reconciliations. And so you really need to make a commitment that this is something that you want to do. It is one of your advocacy strategies for years to come. So as you're getting organized, you're going to want to likely create a PAC board of directors. So that can be composed of employees of the association, members of the association. So you'll want to put together that leadership organization for your PAC. You want to create some bylaws for your PAC. And one suggestion I have for that is, you already are quite limited with the campaign laws as far as how much you can contribute to each election. And so you really don't want, some bylaws may set up even more limits. And so if you are starting a PAC, I would say to not limit yourself even more beyond what the campaign laws are already going to limit you. When I started at my association, we were limited. We didn't give to out-of-cycle senators. So that meant if someone was newly elected as a senator, we had to wait 4 years until they were in cycle to make that contribution and be building that relationship. So I would say not, as you're setting up your PAC, don't limit yourself any more than the campaign laws already limit you to. So once you have some of those internal documents underway, setting up your PAC board, creating some bylaws, you also have everything on the banking end. By law, a PAC is a separate segregated fund. So that means you need to figure out, consult with your finance team, consult with the bank that your association does business with. You need to set up a bank account. You need your own checks. You need to figure out if you're going to do hard copy checks, if you're going to do ACH, deposit slips, and, setting up, it's basically like setting up a small business. You need all those banking components ready to go before you can start accepting contributions and dispersing those contributions to campaigns. You also need all those organizational materials. You need your contribution forms and your letterhead. And if you're in association with corporate members, you have to get approval from your members in order to send them information about the PAC. So you need all those materials ready to go. And then you also will need to look at, how are you going to manage all of your information? There are a few software systems that are specialized in running a PAC that you can use to file your FEC reports. For my association, we use Quorum. It was formerly Cision. So you'll want to get some demos of software, figure out what software you want to use. The FEC does have a free filing software. I've heard that it's quite difficult to use, so you may want to consider if you want to start out with the FEC's free filing software, or if you want to use a vendor, and bringing on a vendor adds cost, but then that also adds their expertise. You have someone to call when you have questions. So you want to consider what you want to use for maintaining your records. And with all of those things that I've just discussed, you have the one-time planning and getting those things underway, but there's going to be ongoing with all of those things. With your software, you have your ongoing costs to keep that software. With the PAC, you have to file your monthly FEC reports. You have to have that time built into whatever association staffer is going to be maintaining all of that. So you have a lot of things to think about as you get a PAC underway. But once they're underway, you need to maintain it. With your PAC board, you're going to need to send them communications, keep them updated on what you're doing. So it's work getting things set up, and it's work maintaining. So once you've established your PAC, once you're starting to raise your funds, as you're growing your PAC, you'll want to consider some strategies as far as how you can best use these funds that you've worked so hard to raise. So the previous speakers touched on how you can use association dollars, or you can get contributions from your corporate members for some of the administrative costs of running your PAC. So if you only have a small amount in your PAC, you really want to save those dollars to give to the campaigns and not use them on your administrative costs. But you can be strategic about how you do that. So some of the things that you can keep in mind is the timing of when you make your contribution. Some PACs will spend everything they have right up into the election and not save a penny. And one thing that I have liked to do over the years is save a little bit in our account so that you are ready to make contributions very early in the next cycle. When you make a contribution early, often campaigns will have a max out package where if you're giving $5,000, you're going to get a whole package of events that lead through the calendar year, or even over the 2-year election cycle. So having some money at the very beginning of an election cycle is really helpful because you can take advantage of some of those max out packages. Also, as someone that has been doing government affairs work and attending those fundraisers, the fundraisers that are at the beginning of the cycle are often less crowded. Those that are held in October of an election year, you're at a huge lunch with 30 attendees, and that member of Congress may not remember you. But if you go to an event early on in the cycle, it may be a small luncheon that's limited to 4 or 5 attendees, and you're going to get a lot more face time with that member of Congress. You're going to get a lot more mileage out of that same dollar contribution than you are if you go to, those really big receptions right at the end. Also take a look at the fundraising events that are being held in the district. They're often a lot cheaper. I can send a member of ours to a picnic that is at the member of Congress's farm or, some other location in their district for $100 or $250, where it would cost $1,000 for our lobbyists to attend. something for that same member of Congress in DC. So take a look at those in-district events. They're often lower cost, and the campaigns are often willing to give you a little bit of a deal. If you say you have 2 or 3 members that want to attend, they may let you have more attendees for that same dollar amount. So, you know, really take a look at those in-district events that can really get more bang out of your buck. And then also consider giving to leadership PAC events. Leadership PAC events will sometimes be a weekend event where it's a, you know, a whole package of things. It's a welcome reception, it's a lunch the next day, it's several events for one leadership PAC contribution. And since it's a small group attending that whole weekend event, you really see relationships being built, and it's more memorable than going to a really large fundraiser. So you may want to, instead of, you know, trickling and, you know, attending a couple fundraisers that are large receptions, you know, focus that, bundle all that money that you have budgeted and go to a leadership PAC event where you can really build a relationship over the course of that weekend. So there's lots of options to look at, you know, finding what fits for your association as far as, you know, what your members are interested in doing on behalf of the association, the needs of your lobbyists, who they really need to connect with. You know, if they really need to connect with someone that's in leadership, those events are going to be a little bit more expensive than events that a new member of Congress is holding. So really consult with your lobbying team. What are their needs, timing of any issues that they're working on, who do they need to be building relationships with, work with your association staff who's interested in attending things in the district, who's ready to get involved. And getting your members involved is a great way to build them as PAC contributors as well. You know, taking an association member when they're in town, taking them to a fundraising event, they see the value of attending the fundraisers, and they are likely to either, you know, begin contributing to the PAC or contribute more to your PAC once they really understand the value of those events. So it's really a great tool to grow your contributors by getting them involved in dispersing those funds. And then also one thing to consider is, you know, those who you're giving your funds to, how likely are they to win re-election? If someone's in a really tight primary, if you only have very, very limited PAC funds, that may be a race that you want to monitor as opposed to making a contribution if you don't have lots of funds. As you grow your PAC, if you're in that situation, if someone's in a tight primary and you like both candidates, perhaps you give a little bit to both candidates. But if you have that really small PAC and it's a really tight primary, perhaps you monitor that race right after the primary when you have your winner. If you know it's someone who's from a party who's likely to win the general, you know, maybe that's where you then go to an event and, you know, you're still giving to their general election, but, you know, you don't have that risk of contributing to someone for their primary election and have them lose. Another tactic that some may use is if they're giving to a primary and they're not sure if they're going to win the primary, they're sure to designate the contribution to the primary or to the general. And then that way, if they lose their primary, then they then have to reimburse you for that contribution if they're not running in the general. So there's things that you can do as far as timing your contributions, figuring out who are the candidates that you really want to support. So with that, overall, there's a lot of considerations to give. If you are thinking of starting a PAC, you want to weigh the resources that you have, both time and financial. And then once you have your PAC underway, think strategically about how you're spending those hard-earned PAC dollars so you can get the most bang out of your buck.
Thanks, Michelle. I think Jim had something he wanted to add.
If I could jump in on, because Michelle made many very good points, and I want to get back to the one she made at the beginning about the importance of sort of pre-selling and thinking through the PAC before it begins, because I see this a lot. It is really critical that everyone involved, the association, its corporate members, individual members, understand what it is and what they're getting into and what's required before they make the leap and establish the PAC. First of all, it's critical that you know in advance that the senior folks, the C-suite folks in the association, as well as the C-suite folks in your corporate members, will contribute. Because if the senior people aren't contributing, the folks down the line won't contribute. They'll go to the FEC database, they'll see, my boss isn't giving, why the heck should I do it? And so that buy-in as an initial matter is absolutely critical. It's also important for associations that have corporate members to understand the FEC prior approval rule before they start, rather than to have to stumble into it later on. And just quickly, for the benefit of those who assume this may be newer material, when you're dealing with a corporate member of the association, the corporate member has to give approval to the association PAC for the association PAC to solicit the restricted class members of the employees in the corporation. And then that corporation can only give the prior approval to one association per year. So it's very, very limiting. And some folks don't understand that. And it can cause a lot of upset and consternation, because after all this effort, you find out the employees of this particular member are never going to contribute, or even the senior folks aren't going to do that. And then your only other option will become to establish an individual membership category to be able to solicit those people directly outside of a prior approval. So understanding that is really, really important. On the housekeeping side, I just want to jump in on 2 points. What, Michelle, you were talking about, understanding that this is a separate aggregated fund, and yes, it is a separate legal entity, and anybody who's involved in the financial role needs to understand it is truly a separate bank account. Can't be taking association funds and moving them in and out of it like any other checking account that the association may have. And I do like the idea of using a commercial software. We've used FactFile, and it works, and it's free, and it's, you get what you pay for. But you can do it at an early level. You can get by with FactFile, but eventually you'll need to gravitate towards a commercial product.
So a lot of great information that's come out from each of you, and looking as our time today is sort of winding down. One thing that I heard, though, is talking about if you don't have a lot of dollars, depending on the time you have, and sort of the overused cliche of either go big or go home. And it really doesn't matter the industry that you're in. There's someone out there who has more PAC dollars than what your group has, or a much larger association budget, and you're dwarfed by them. So if you're brand new to an organization, or your organization is just getting started in government affairs, or for some reason restarting government affairs, and there's not enough time and not enough money to do everything, what are two places that each of you would suggest that you could start? And why don't we go to John first? So if all the things that you said, John, what might be 2 items you would suggest get started with these 2 items?
That's a great question. Let me dance while I think of an answer to that. Really, two things that I would do is, number one, really just go up to the committees and introduce yourselves to the staff, to the people, saying, hey, this is what we're doing. This is why we're here. Do those introductory coffees, educate them on who you are, why you're brand new, and ask how you can help them. So that's number one. If you're reintroducing yourself with a small PAC, you can ask for one-on-ones with a member. Importantly, people forget that fundraisers often have better line of communication with a member of Congress than the legislative staff does sometimes. So get to know your fundraisers. They can be an asset for you. But I would also contact a few people, figure out if you're targeting a specific senator or member of Congress. Usually it's member of Congress. Find their fundraiser. It's not that hard. Call them up and say, hey, listen, I want to do a one-on-one with the congressman. We're brand new. We just want to sit down and chat with him, introduce ourselves. And you can usually find time, or they will find time to do that with you. So those are two strategies I would do right off the book if you're restarting or kind of new and you have an opportunity to get up to Capitol Hill if you're in DC.
So how about you then? What might be, again, you've provided a lot of great information, but if we're just getting started and looking for guidance, where should I, and I don't have a lot of staff to help me, what are the two things that I could focus on first?
Is that me or Michelle?
Michelle.
Okay.
Oh, to me. Okay. I would say if you're just getting started, I'll go ahead and target mine towards PAC since John already hit a lot of government affairs in general. If you're getting started with your PAC, take stock of what you have. A lot of things that you can do as far as growing support for your PAC can be free. You know, what are the things that your membership really values? It may be they really value communication from your association CEO. That may be someone that they really hold in high regard. And so, you know, setting up a webinar just for everyone that has given prior approval, or you know, promote that you're going to have a special webinar for anyone who makes a contribution by X date, and you know, use that CEO of your association. You can have a PAC in politics, or you know, however you want to theme it, have an opportunity for that CEO to speak to the membership. So find what are some of those opportunities that your membership would really value, and take a look at doing that as a way to just start increasing the education around your PAC and growing support for your PAC.
Okay. Same question over to you, Jim.
Well, I'm the rules guy here, and so I like to always look at this kind of question in terms of where do I have the greatest flexibilities to operate with the least regulation. And in terms of opportunities for interactions, let's take the Hill members and staffers. You know, the gift rules I find are very flexible in terms of the number of different kinds of opportunities they allow for not only meeting, but providing something, whether that's food or beverages or informational materials. There's a great deal of flexibility that's built into those. And I will contrast that with the gift rules that would apply with the administration, because there's an executive order where that limits what presidential appointees and other Schedule C type folks, what they can receive. In contrast, the ability to interact and provide stuff that's helpful and informational. The congressional gift rules give you a lot to work with there. On the flip side, when we're talking about campaign finance funding oriented capabilities, I come back to what I mentioned earlier, that ability for an organization without a PAC to hold a very limited type of fundraiser for a member of Congress. Yes, it's a limited group that can come to it, but it is a way to get in the game without the PAC at all, where it is branded with the organization's name. It's not just yes, it's individuals giving money, but it's branded with the association name to it. So that connection between the fundraising and the organization is made. And I will add one more and break the rule, not do two. I'll do 2.5 here, but it's also what John was talking about, you know, invite the folks to come to speak at your organizations, whether it's annual meetings or forums, all those kinds of things. There's a whole audience of folks there, and it's an easy way to get the members speaking in front of the people they want to be speaking in front of. So those would be my top 2.5.
Okay, great. Well, it looks like we're starting to near the top of the hour here. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today for a very interesting discussion that certainly dominates the government affairs strategic planning conversations held by associations across the country. So on behalf of ASAE's GRAPAC, our gratitude goes out to today's panelists, as we truly appreciate the information and advice that you've shared. Please note that it's again that time of year for ASAE's annual meeting, which kicks off in Atlanta on Saturday, August 5th. So we hope to see many of you there. And as my term as chair of ASAE's GRAPAC sunsets next month, I'd like to thank my GRAPAC colleagues, those who are here today, and others I've worked with over the years, and ASAE for all their tireless efforts and support during this past year. And of course, thanks to each of you, our ASAE members and supporters who have been so appreciative of the GRAPAC's programming and content offered online, at the annual meeting, and at other events, not just this year, but during my 5 years serving on the advisory council. So each of you really make this worthwhile. So have a safe and happy rest of your summer. And I look forward to seeing everyone in the coming ASAE fiscal year. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.